Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And a good morning to you. Good to be here with you. I'm feeling a little out of it today, just so you know. The out of it is more, it's mental. I just feel so foggy, and I'm blaming the anesthesia, but it's, my God, 2 weeks now. But I guess it doesn't clear as readily as it once did. I say that only in case I am more incoherent, perhaps, than is the norm. I want to start by saying that I was thinking of the Pope last night. He came to my mind because I had heard an interview with an author of a book about some of the more recent popes. And it put me in mind of what that job, if one can call it that, is. And it is, according to the interview I heard, really the last true monarchy that exists. I don't know if that's the case, but what I was thinking was that in my lifetime, some of the men who have held that position have, to my mind, been awful men, cramped men, unfortunate that they ascended to that position of such power. And some have been fascinating to me. I think without a doubt, the most fascinating was, I hope I get all these numbers right, Pope John the 23rd, right? He was, he seemed, I don't know, I just adored him, and he seemed so real. He seemed so non-monarchical. And the Pope since him, who has seemed most non-monarchical, is the current Pope. Now, you know, some Jews' meanderings on the Pope and popes are of no consequence. Obviously, this is just my opinion, because when you live in this world as a Catholic or as a non-Catholic, a Pope is someone who has great power. And that power is felt even if one is not a member of the church, I would argue. I mostly wanted to say that the Pope, current, Pope Francis, is a Pope that I admire, and a Pope for whom I have felt affection, and a Pope who strikes me as human. And so I've been thinking about him because he is so ill. And then I was thinking how awful it must be to be the Pope. Unless, of course, you are somebody who, above all, enjoys power. But that does not strike me as this Pope. And above, if anyone is somebody who above all wants power, that is not somebody that I admire. So I feel for these men that achieve this position because I cannot imagine a more lonesome life, a more isolated life, a more unforgiving life, where in fact you sort of surrender your life to take the position. You are no longer truly human. You're something else. And as such, I don't think you can have genuine friendships. You, because of the church and its absurd clinging to this idea of celibacy, you have no partner, no wife, no family. I cannot imagine. What you have is just this awesome responsibility. What you have are people surrounding you who I suspect you cannot trust because of your power, because you are a monarch, and because of palace intrigue. Can you imagine being that person who now so feels his humanity? What a lonely, awful death popes must have. And normally I don't care, because as I said, a lot of them I don't have much feeling for, but this one I do. And my heart goes out to him. The other thing that I've thought of him is, I mean, I forget how old he is. He's old and he's ill and he's infirm, and because he's as old as he is, he has all the aches and pains and all of the, the indignities that are piled upon old folks. And yet he has a job that requires him to be at work like 24/7, requires him to be on, requires him to don heavy robes and perform rites and essentially be a performer. At the same time, he's being a leader of like the largest and most successful institution in Western civilization. I cannot begin to imagine the burden. And I just want to say, my heart goes out to this man because, unlike some popes, he seems a man to me, a good man. And I don't know if I wish him release. He will not do what his predecessor did, which was say, I can't do this and resign. That was remarkable in its way. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I feel for him and I like him. Somebody else I wanted to, whose passing I wanted to acknowledge and have not, is John Burnett, who spent a long career here in Pittsburgh television. And I didn't know John well, but our paths crossed enough for me to know that he was one of the nicest humans in television that I'd ever met. And his genuine niceness, realness, was, I think, obvious to anyone even seeing him on television, where sometimes what you see is not what really is. What a wonderful, wonderful man. And what an awful death, and a premature one, and one that makes us remember how little we understand about this CTE, how injuries to the brain, to young brains, through physical contact, through sport, often. I mean, think of all the sports in which these kinds of head trauma occur constantly. It isn't just football, it's hockey, it's soccer. And he was not a professional football player, but he played as a child and he played in college. And he had it, and it killed him. So it's fascinating that so many NFL players, professional players, escape. And some, like John, who did not play professionally, do not. We don't know enough about this thing. And we in Pittsburgh have a very intimate relationship with it, since it was essentially discovered here. And it was a Pittsburgh Steeler, Mike Webster, whose brain was Exhibit A, was the Rosetta Stone. I have a memory of Mike Webster. It just occurs to me, I'll share it, because anything is better than talking about what's going on in our country right now. Mike Webster, as you know, was a Pittsburgh Steeler. He was the center. Centers take a lot of hits. It's their job. And I was shortly after coming to Pittsburgh. I couldn't have been here more than a year, if that. So I was new to Pittsburgh, new to television, not very well known. And I ended up sitting with Mike Webster at some event where I'm not sure if I was talking or he was talking, or maybe both. We were both talking, but we were like the two celebrities that were there. He being a much bigger one than I, and I remember thinking, God, I hate this when you end up sitting next to people you don't know and you don't have anything to talk to about. Um, and I thought, what am I going to talk to him about? And I can't speak for Mike Webster. I ended up having such a wonderful time talking to him on so many levels. Uh, I did know he was from Wisconsin, as I am, and so that was the obvious opening for me. And man, we never looked back. Just delightful conversation. And he was interested in a lot of things. I don't recall us talking much about football. We talked about all kinds of stuff, and it was a reminder that we assumptions that we make about people. You know, he's a big dumb football player. What am I going to talk to him about? And just a delightful man. And when it became known how ill he had become and how his life had spiraled out of control because of this at that time unknown horrific disease that had claimed him. How just sick at heart I felt. Yeah. Well, John Burnett, a wonderful man, and God bless him. So here I am. Headlines, guys. Just two headlines that caught my eye this morning. I'll share with you because they exemplify why I said that I'd rather talk about the popes, Mike Webster, John Burnett, anything other than what's going on in our country. But now I must. Just two headlines I happened to see today when I became conscious and began reading, as is my habit. This one from Foreign Policy magazine, a very heavy duty kind of publication to be sure. Foreign Policy. Here's the headline. Yes, America is Europe's enemy now. And I didn't read the article because I knew what the article was obviously about. And this astonishing headline is true. Foreign Policy magazine is not a magazine that does clickbait headlines. It's more stolid than that, more serious. And so, cutting to the chase, a statement, a headline that would be inconceivable, unthinkable until this moment in American history. Imagine any president of these United States up until this point reading this headline and saying essentially WTF. What? Yes, America is Europe's enemy now. And that vote, that United Nations vote that was taken this week, made that clear, as did so many other unspeakable and unforgivable utterances from this White House. The other headline that also made my head spin is from the New York Times today. EPA, that'd be, of course, the Environmental Protection Agency. EPA urges White House to repeal finding on threat of greenhouse gases. That is the Orwellian headline of the day. The United States, the enemy of Europe's current Environmental Protection Agency, is urging the government to say that greenhouse gases are not a threat to the environment. There is not a scientist in this world who would agree with that. It's Orwellian. Orwellian meaning it turns something on its head. Black is white, war is peace, bad is good. And when a nation chooses as its leader a known liar, someone who in fact cannot help but lie every time he opens his mouth, it's not surprising to end up in this Orwellian nightmare. I was looking at a editorial from the Financial Times of London. I'll share some of it with you. London, you'll recall, is in Europe. And Europe, as you'll recall, is no longer our ally. According to the Trump administration, it is our enemy. We have taken up with the enemy of Europe, that which Europe fears above all, Russia. So the London Financial Times says this. In the past 10 days, Trump has all but incinerated 80 years of post-war American leadership. It has become an unabashed predator. Guys, think of the pride that you sometimes took, not always, in being an American. And it was because America did, even if it often fell short, but did subscribe to some impressive and laudatory ideals. And every once in a while did things which made it appear as if we fully intended to attempt to live up to them. And imagine that now we present ourselves to the world as the London Financial Times accurately says, as an unabashed predator. I mean, the Times went on to tell people what, used to be the United States of America. Those times when I was proud to be an American, when America displayed its character, its better sides of its character as a global leader, and how those moments defined the world's idea of us. One of the reasons why so many desperate people yearn to come here, this shining beacon on a hill. But the Financial Times says, but, there it is, but a new era has begun. And it goes on to say that Trump's assertion that Ukraine should never have started the war with Russia, again, Orwellian, since of course they did not. Trump's assertion that Ukraine should never have started the war with Russia, and his vice president, J.D. Vance, going over to Munich, Germany, and telling Europe that the real danger in their continent is democracy. Because that's essentially what J.D. Vance did. And the London Financial Times says Trump's statements about Ukraine, Vance's statement about the dangers of liberal democracy, are the dark version of America. And they come straight, of course, from Vladimir Putin and his talking points. And they went on to say, quoting Franklin Delano Roosevelt, these are words, utterances, statements by American leaders that will live in infamy. They've got him dead to rights. They go on to say that he is instinctively, this is Trump, committed to the idea that the world is a jungle in which the big players take what they want. America, the Times, Financial Times says, has turned. And that is the truth. And because America has turned, we get headlines. We get to wake up now to headlines like, yes, America is Europe's enemy now. So if you feel like your hair is on fire, it is. If you feel despair, you should. If you feel anger, you should. If you feel resolve, you must. And in that regard, let me share with you something else I saw that I think is important that we take in. Let me see if I can, of course, find it. That's always the trouble. Here it is. And I'm sorry, I don't even know where I got this. I just took a snapshot of it. The current coup is less than 5 weeks old, and resistance has only begun. The Trump, Vance, Musk regime will fail. Let's hope. I'm not so sure. Even so, democracy reemerging will require at least a decade, if not a generation or more, to rebuild and strengthen what has been destroyed and to fix the raging inequalities, injustices, and corruption. Those of you who want the Democratic Party to step up and be heard are right, of course. But political parties do not lead. The anti-war movement, the civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, all of those successful movements did not depend on the Democratic Party. They depended on a mass mobilization of all of us who accept the responsibilities of being American. And I hope this last sentence is correct. I pray. And we will prevail because we are relearning the basic truth that we are the leaders we've been waiting for. Yeah. No waiting around, waiting for the white knight. We must, each of us must pick up the banner. Oh, guys, I don't pretend to know how this fight will go. I do not know. I just know it must be waged. I don't pretend to know. And I do know that us older people have a particular responsibility to be courageous. One, because we've lived our lives. We have nowhere near as much to lose as younger people do in this fight. So if anyone is going to storm the barricades or be in the first lines, if anyone's going to serve as cannon fodder in this war, it should be us, old people. Those of us who've enjoyed the best parts, often, of what was our country. And those of us who obviously failed to hold it. So it just seems to me like the older you are, the easier it is to give no quarter, to find your voice, because what the hell, right? And I can't imagine what is going to be asked of us. I can't. Um, the ugliness, the pettiness, the vengefulness, the cruelty, the sordidness, the corruption of the people who are now in control is awesome. They are as bad a bunch of bad guys as you could conjure. They're out of central casting. They're out of a nightmare fever dream. And it's one of the reasons I get so nuts at anyone approaching them or this time as if it is in any way normal. It is not a time for being normal. We are facing people who have thrown all norms out the window. And this is a classic example of not the time to take a powder puff to a knife fight. Okay, latest outrages. Just let me get to some of, yeah. Okay, so New York Times headline again today, front page, millions at risk of Medicaid loss if GOP wins its cuts. Well, we know that the budget that the Congress, Republicans, are trying to hammer out is a budget with one goal in mind, and that is to transfer as much wealth as can be to those who already have the wealth. In order for Trump to get the tax cuts he wants for the richest, who are already not paying much of anything in taxes, he has to find the money somewhere. And the only place to find the money is to take what's left that the poor people have. Medicaid. The only way he's going to get the budget he wants is to go after Medicaid. Make no mistake. They know it. Medicaid, which covers more than 70 million Americans, the largest health insurance program in this country, that, as we know, doesn't really believe in health insurance. It is also, Medicaid, the largest single source of federal money to the states. So get ready to watch as the Republicans in Washington take those federal dollars that all the states in this union rely on and pocket them. hand them over to Elon Musk and the other billionaires. More than 21 million adults who had not been eligible for Medicaid actually got it last year, just last year. It's one of the things Biden did that made Republicans go crazy, because nothing makes them go crazier than using tax dollars to benefit more people and people in need. Medicaid had previously been restricted primarily to pregnant, disabled, or elderly people. But here's the thing, Medicaid has become pretty popular in a bunch of red states over the last decade, and because of something called Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. In fact, much of the increased enrollment in Medicare comes from red states, where those red state voters, who also put these fascists in the White House, did vote to get some health insurance, and they passed ballot initiatives. Remember? Well, let's see if they like it when their guy takes it away. Medicaid funds almost half of the births in this country. More than 70% of Americans say don't touch Medicaid. The guys in the White House, they ain't listening. They don't care. They already got what they want, which is power. And they'll do what they want. Let me get a caller in. Hello.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yes. Oh, okay. I think it's going to collapse. I kind of believe like Corvette does. This is going to collapse. I think a lot of this stuff's not going to go through because there's a lot of Republicans who won't go along with it. They don't have that much of a majority in the House or the Senate, and I just don't see that they're going to pass all that. I mean, the Democrats couldn't get things done. They're not going to get anything done with all this stuff. Yeah, he's going to do his crazy stuff, and it's going to go through the court system. But I just don't. I believe like it's going to collapse, like Corville said the other day. I believe that's going to happen.
Okay, well,
I kind of think it's going to be a rerun, maybe of last time.
Nah.
Same old shit.
Well,
think the economy, that will be last probably. Pandemic will occur, something will happen again like that. Hell, we might even get into a little something happen here. I don't know. But yeah, I think his budget's not going to get through. It's going to be scaled back if it does. I don't believe that.
You forget he has a party that controls the Congress, and it's a party filled with cowards. Cowards. They're literally afraid of their base killing them.
Well, when they go back to their states and have to explain this stuff, I think they're going to change their mind. I can see that happen. They'll be
either way. They're afraid of being killed. They've set off. They've created a monster. What? All their base are all armed, loaded, and pissed off. That's what they live for, to be pissed off. They created a monster. The monster might take them out, yes, but you'll see no courage from this crowd.
This is amazing that all this time went by and it said nothing in there that you couldn't be a felon to be president. And nobody decided to change it. They decided, oh, that's no big deal. You know why? Because we might get a criminal in there next time. That's what I feel. I feel Democrats, well, maybe we'll have a guy that has some convictions, you know? So let's leave it like that. What's about it? How stupid is that? And as far as the Constitution and the Founding Fathers, I don't know, man. This, to me, there's a lot of, the only thing you can rely on now is the court systems, the lower court systems. Like they just shot down this thing with his birthright thing.
Well,
that was the Supreme Court, though.
Okay.
So
we'll
some
see.
of that's going to take effect. And if you listen to some of the people that are like, we're in the DOJ and all that, smart people, they think that's going to, the checks and balances in that way is going to affect a lot of it.
Well, we'll
So
see. We'll see.
I'm not giving up the ship
Yeah,
quite
I
yet.
understand. Okay, Mr. Optimistic, Pollyanna.
No, I'm not
Okay.
positive. No, I understand that. I could see what's going on. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever going to be normal after this. Nothing is going to be normal again. No. That's it. We lost it. We lost it. So,
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Now, waiting for the courts. If we've learned one thing, it's Trump. He turns to the courts because he knows how easy it is to play the system. And I believe his vice president at one point has signaled that the courts do not have an enforcement arm. They rely, again, on people honoring their judgments. If the Supreme Court says you got to do this, and then you don't do it, what happens? I'm asking. Does John Roberts have a military? No. And I got to tell you, there's a deadline midnight tonight. I don't know if you're aware of it. A federal judge has given the government, and this is his second order, because he ordered the government to start some of that money that they confiscated from USAID to get it flowing. They were ordered to get some of that money flowing. They had no legal right to stop it. They didn't follow the order. So they were in court earlier this week, I think Monday, maybe Tuesday. And the judge said, what the hell? I'm giving you until midnight tonight, meaning today, tonight, to unfreeze those funds. Okay? What's your bet? What's the judge going to do when they don't? Because my bet is they're not going to. What enforcement apparatus is available in the past in situations where the Supreme Court or the federal courts ordered something and were ignored? I'll give you letting black students into state universities in the South. And you had Southern governors standing in the doorway over my dead body, they said. They did not follow the order. But the military was called in by the executive branch. Understanding the system we have here. And the order was enforced at the point of guns. You think the commander-in-chief now is going to have the military somehow enforce the ruling of the courts now? And what? Point the guns at its own head? I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so. You want a constitutional crisis? Might be coming your way midnight tonight. Speaking of that, USAID, sorry, I was trying to read something. USAID funding. I had read something, and this is now weeks old, because it happened very soon after they stopped these funds. And I said people will die. And people are dying. Oh, nobody we've got to worry about, children in Sudan. Yeah, no problem. Refugee camps, those people. Yeah, refugees. Well, let me see. Refugees. What are refugees? Oh, yeah, murderers, right? Disease carriers or something. Bear no resemblance to humans, I guess, if we are to listen to uh, the folks in power. So I wanted to share this one little item that just so typifies, so often, uh, as I have said, the horror of actions like this administration is taking. It's hard to get your head around it. The way to get your head around horror is to zero in on one victim instead of imagine. It's why you can't imagine like a Holocaust. It's overwhelming, but just do one story. And the story that I saw, which just made me insane, was that the state. Okay, let me get it. Let me get it here. Here it is. As you know, a lot of the people who work for USAID are not in this country. They're overseas, where so much of the aid is. So they go there, they stay there, their families are there, their children are in school all over, and they were flat out just rug just pulled out from under them. They're all now out of work, and a lot of them not even given help getting back to the United States. The State Department pulled the plug so quickly on them that it had extraordinary effect. One family, I'm going to tell you a story of one worker. His wife has a very high risk pregnancy going on. Well, he wrote this. Because of the stress and strain of the constant onslaught of the recent weeks, my wife has repeatedly been in the hospital with a life-threatening condition and stress-related complications. Because of these medical complications, she was told she needed to immediately evacuate because of a high risk of hemorrhage, which would be life-threatening to both her and our baby. However, the request for medical evacuation has been denied twice by the State Department in Washington, first on February 4, again on February 6, with a message from them stating that there is no USAID funding for medevacs. This man goes on to say the staff in the medical unit who shared this information with me did so through their own tears, as they assured me they knew this was wrong and could be incredibly dangerous for my wife and my unborn child. The rest of the story? The employee eventually managed to get in touch with his senator. The senator got his wife's medevac approved, but it was too late. His wife had begun hemorrhaging, and even a short medical flight was deemed too dangerous. He now says, and I don't know what the end result of this is. Now I'm afraid for her and my baby because of this rushed, haphazard, and cruel push to shut down our agency. This didn't have to happen. I don't know how to explain to our daughter, who is living through all of this with me and my wife, that it's our government doing this to us. I don't know what the end result of that one story is, but that's just one story. And I also wanted to point out that this latest news that the White House will now decide what reporters get to cover them is just flat out of a fascist takeover book. And in fact, the New York Times has been, its major reporters have already been shoved out the door. In a similar vein, because controlling the news is really important if you're going to steal a country. Embassies throughout the world, American embassies, have been told that they must cancel all their subscriptions to newspapers, including the newspapers of whatever place they are. And this is insane, of course. This is from a memo sent out almost 2 weeks ago now. This is about saving money, considering you immediately place stop work orders on all non-mission critical contracts, purchase orders for media subscriptions, publications, periodicals, newspapers. This applies globally. People in employees say, oh, if you want to suggest that maybe you get to keep one, it says you must submit a request to maintain a new subscription, but it must be done within one sentence. Oh, God, these horrible people. And they have been declined left, right, and center, the one sentence ones. A State Department employee who received the memos expressed concern because terminating these subscriptions, particularly to local news outlets, would deprive the embassies of information necessary to do their mission, to understand the place they were in. This is insanity. Just insanity. Okay, I have one little quickie to leave you with, because it's so unbelievable. This is in Patagonia, in Chile. I saw a picture of Patagonia the other day. Oh my God, was it gorgeous. Anyway, this 24-year-old guy, Adrian Simancas, was in the water, kayaking, and his father was on the shore and actually shooting a video, and then it happened. A humpback whale swallowed him. A humpback whale was feeding, and the way a humpback whale feeds is it opens its mouth and swims, and it's feeding on all those, krill, these small fish, and it just, they go and takes in mouthfuls of water. Well, and one of the mouthfuls was 24-year-old Adrian Simancas and his kayak with his father. One can only imagine videoing from the shore. And thank God, it says here, I haven't seen this video. I mean, it must be out there, right? The whale was probably just as surprised as the kayaker was, according to a humpback expert, because he said these whales can't swallow a human. The little fish are like sort of filtered into their, whatever. They couldn't get the kayak and the person into his gullet if they have them, and sort of like spit him out, the kayak and the guy, and the 24-year-old was, pardon the pun, fished out of the water by his father. Just saying. And astonishingly unharmed because, he went in and he came right back out. But what a story that'd be. Okay, guys, I'm not here tomorrow. I have to go see my surgeon. He wants to admire his work, I guess. And I just want to remind you again, Friday is Sit on Your Wallets Day, not a penny. It's a national economic boycott. Let's make this felt. I'm begging you, and spread the word. Okay? Thank you. Have a good one. I hope I'm back on Monday and my head is clearer.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.